Welcome back, everyone. So, today's session is all about rain or shine, just do it. So, what does that mean? It means that last week we talked about the difference between consistency and motivation. And this week we are going to focus on really diving deep into what that is, as well as taking gentle movement in our practice. So, do what you need to do. Whether you move, you walk, you dance, you just take gentle movement in your body. You do what I'm doing, snap, crackle, and pop. And just work through this. Because sometimes the energy can get stagnant in our body. And we just want to work through this. So don't be afraid to work through it, okay? So inhale, exhale, release. Another breath. Exhale and release. Final breath. And exhale and release. And just moving the arms here. Taking gentle movement here. Releasing and letting that go. Okay? So I want you to continue to take those movements here as we dive deep into this consistency. So last week when we talked about motivation, we were talking about motivation from the perspective of excitement, the energy to do something. But that wanes. Motivation wanes. And you have to develop consistency over time in order to continue to go on. What consistency is a habit or routine. So that means as you have a habit or routine, you'll be able to accomplish things. You'll be able to move closer to what your goals are without relying too much on energy or motivation. The way that this works, though, is consistency has to be things that are reasonable for you. Things that you have to do. Things that are very simple. So that even when you're not motivated, you can just do them. But if you have things that are so big that need to be done, typically you might need a lot of motivation in order to encourage yourself to get it done, especially in areas that you don't know. That's why when you're at the beginning of the process, the beginning of any process of something you want to do, there's going to be a lot of motivation. The planning stages or the research stage is filled with motivation. This should inspire you to do something. This should inspire you to bring things together. But when you start to take action and you start to have experience, that's when the motivation wanes, and that's okay. And instead, you start to rely on your wisdom, but there's a gap in between, the gap of where the motivation wanes, and then your wisdom picks up, and it's like, oh yes, I feel accomplished in a way that cannot be described by the research or the planning that I have done. So with that being said, find your consistency, and it's not that complicated. Do not get caught up in perfectionism, meaning if you started at the beginning and you say, oh, I'm going to do this, and over time you realize actually it's going to look more like this, do not have a meltdown thinking it has to look this way. It doesn't have to look that way. That's really fear-based. The feeling that something has to look this particular way because you're afraid that it won't come true if it starts to look another way. It might be bigger and better for you. You have to open yourself, open your mind, open your horizons. Some dreams and goals and wishes are just stepping stones to things that are bigger out there. So don't feel limited. And that's the same thing with relationships too. Some of them are just stepping stones into something else. Motivations and passions are just stepping stones into something else. So you have to keep yourself open to that and just work with yourself. Now, I said this last week, but I'm going to reiterate it this week. Please do not get caught up so much in what other people are doing. It's important to do research. It's important to plan. And a part of that is to see what other people are doing. But do not think just because you do it the way that they're doing it, that it's going to magically work out. Do it the way that you want to do it. Yes, use common sense and research. What is research? Understanding social media marketing, SEO, or if it's an in-person thing, understanding the routine of doing things, understanding how do they do this, and that. But their flair or their flavor is not your flair or flavor. So, they say often imitated but never duplicated. Just find yourself. And it's okay if there's little things, they say what imitation is flattery, the best form of flattery. There's little things as you're developing yourself, but spend most of the time trying to find, who am I? Because when you find who you are in the process, you'll be able to go more and more. But if you're trying to be something that you are not, that's going to be tough too, because once the motivation wanes, and if you're not being authentically yourself, it's going to feel exhausting. It's going to feel like a chore. So in the beginning, use it to explore and just keep going and going and going. So it's all about the consistency here. And then what you want to do is also shorten the time frame. So you have a year of what you want to do, shorten it down to 12 weeks, have consistency there. And you'll start to realize with a shorter time frame, you'll hold yourself more accountable. You'll actually get things done, and you'll realize what is realistic to get done in 12 weeks. So you'll get there and you're like, oh, okay, you know what? I'm going to take a step back here and I'm just going to do. And then you get that done, and then you move on to the next. What I realize is in the My People community, specifically the Mystic and Body community, we went for the last 2 weeks doing the 52-week challenge/program. And in this, everyone set a goal at the beginning of the year. And we had 4 check-ins that were 12 weeks apart to just hold ourselves accountable. And the thing about that is the goals can change. They can look different. You can remove them. It's really similar to the phases of the moon. With the new moon, it's new things. The possibility are endless. But as you go through those different periods of challenge that happens, you start to wane or wax. You start to let go of the things that aren't important until you get to this point of the full moon, where the full moon is celebration of this realization of, this is what I need to do. But after the full moon, you still have to complete the cycle of the moon before you start another new moon again. And you have to finish what you started. So that whole process of the moon being so empty visually to we filling it up, and we're being realistic of, okay, this is what can be filled and this is what can't be filled, to the point where we're like, by the time that moon is full, we understand. And then just carrying through and following through on the things. And understanding challenges are a part of the waning or the weeding out process. Don't freak out when things don't happen the way that you think they should, because they provide perspective. When we're doing research, when we're planning, when we're motivated, when we're dreaming, we don't know firsthand experience. When you get into the firsthand experience, you start to realize, this is what's really happening here. Do I actually like this or not? Do I really want to go about this way or not? And that gives you the freedom to do so, of deciding, okay, I want to do it this way, or I don't want to do it this way. That is completely and totally up to you. So as you produce consistency for yourself, just sit with that, okay? And every time you have a little bit more wisdom, you change the research and analytical part with the lived experience, and you start to slowly shift those things. Last but certainly not least, find an accountability space. Preferably in the topic that you're interested in, but it doesn't have to be. Just a place where you feel, whether it's in real life or it's in online or it's a combination of multiple spaces, where people are really achieving and reaching their goals. So you could think about different social media spaces, like for example, the MP community. Our community is a space where people come and share. It's an uninterrupted space. You could try on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, but I don't think it's that good. I think they're kind of more distractions. But I think maybe like Reddit is not a bad place. You can see with like the different communities that people are really kind of like, if you find that particular community, it can be very helpful, as well as many other places, maybe Discord, like many other places that you feel really connected to or feels familiar with you. If you notice that the place that you feel comfortable with, there's a lot of distractions surrounding it. That is why I created the MP community, because as much as I loved creating community here on YouTube at Reiki Healing Hope, it was too many distractions. And it's really nice that people felt that they had a place to come back to on YouTube. But the MP community is just so much better in so many ways to intimately connect with people and just allow them to have an uninterrupted space. And of course, if they want to use social media, they can do that. But it's just like a space that they need. And depending on how they're interacting, whether they're just there and like, it's free to be there, and interacting with the community events that happen monthly, it's a space where they can just share, they can post things. Because I didn't like how on YouTube, there's not this reciprocity. They cannot post back. People can comment, and I think that community is about creating a collaborative space, and that's why I created it. So I've definitely been working on amplifying the experience and always making it, better. So I encourage those who don't know about it to head on over there and have and enjoy a better experience. You don't have to put up with how things have always been. But with that being said, there's many other spaces too that I personally enjoy. And you may have it for different reasons, or you may have it for limited reasons. Like, they say a reason, a season, or a lifetime. So different spaces can encourage you in different ways. But it's really important to have a space, because one can get lost in the research or the planning phase of things. What do I mean by that? The ideas of should I do the that at a certain point you got to just get started sloppily. It's okay. You got to get started where you don't know anything. You got to get started where everything doesn't have to be perfect. You don't know everything, because you're going to continue to do better research. The better research is you have more context on what's going on, and so you could be more precise. Whenever we look at anything on social media, we notice that the people that people pay attention to are more niche down, because we have so much content nowadays that just being a generalist doesn't really make sense anymore. It's the same thing in your research process of your goals and of your dreams. You want to niche down. You want to get very specific, and the more that you know, the more that you can be more and more and more specific about what it is that you're doing or what it is that you're focusing on. So once you get to that, just rinse and repeat and get comfortable with, you're going to be happy, you're going to be sad, you're going to be mad. But a large period is like boredom. Again, I tried to explain the other day that like life isn't these ups and downs. And I'm going to keep it real with anybody who is in these drama relationships with friends, family, or relationship in which the drama is so up and down that someone gives you the bare minimum and you're so grateful for it. I'm going to be honest, life is not like that. What life is when you have good boundaries is boredom, and it's not bad. It's just you make the choices each and every day of what you put effort into. And it's not this overstimulation. We have overstimulation in our devices. We have overstimulation in these dynamics that we have with other people, that we think that in the goal building process, as a distraction from this other stuff, that it should do that too. It's not going to. In the beginning, it'll be very motivating and it'll do that, but after a while, it'll be very balanced. So what it should do is teach you that your relationships, that your job, that these dynamics in your life should also be balanced. So learn how to fill up, or what to do when you're bored. Sometimes it's not even a fill up. Sometimes it's just take a nap or go for a walk or go just sit outside and just people watch or nature watch. There's nothing wrong with the devices or using podcasts or listening to things. This is how we're communicating with each other. But I encourage you to go out and experience life, because when we engage with these devices, they give us this sense of stimulation, this sense of we have already accomplished something. So we start to think when we go to accomplish a goal, it should be like this instant gratification. It's not like that. It takes time. And so when we're constantly overly stimulated, it kind of messes up our perception of how long it takes to do something. Things take a long time, especially things that are worthwhile. So that's why it's important to have a big goal, like a goal that lasts maybe like 10 years, and then break them up into 5 years, into 2 years, into 1 year, into 1 year, into 1 year, into a couple of weeks. And as you get more perspective, your approach will change. But many people, because of fear-based, cannot have a dream that's far, that big, because when you do that, when you start to build towards a dream that is that big, okay? Like, for example, you look at like Olympians, like the Olympics and stuff. You look at Olympians, and these are people who have consistently been working for years. Even if you're in an Olympic sport that's like very young, like young people are there, they started at a very early age. So can you imagine, as these people were working towards these things over the years, your friends are not going to be, unless your friends are also Olympians, but for the most part, not everybody's an Olympian. So your friends are not going to be as consistent in what they're doing as what you're doing, even if it's in the same theme or category. There's going to be times where you have to show up and do something where, other people might just want to relax and they might do something else. So all the sacrifice and the consistency, but at the same time, when you have a longer period of time, yes, when you're going into a competition, it's going to be more hectic. But if you have 10 or 15 years, it's just more about consistency, you showing up and doing it. And that's the difference between someone who is, when I'm using the term lazy, I'm not using it in a mean way. I'm saying like, they're like, oh, I don't feel like doing it today, even though they could have done it, versus someone saying like, I don't feel like doing it today, but let me just go get it done. That mindset, that way of doing things is a deciding factor of success over time. And they're not doing something that's so huge that it's going to be like, I don't feel like doing this, but this is going. No, I don't feel like doing this, but let me go get this done. It's like when you go to the gym and you have your consistent workout. You're like, I don't feel like doing this, but let me just go in here and just get this done and then go about my business. You're past the point of where you have to think about it. You're past the point of like, okay, let me just get it done, boom, boom, and go to something else. So being able to get your goals, your big goals, especially for Olympians, they have those big goals that are very far away, being able to break it up, having that community. And I guess this one is last, but certainly not least, having mentorship or having guidance. Sometimes we don't always have access, financial access, or actually just access of like physical access or proximity to the mentorship that we need. But keep on looking. You'll find these interesting communities online that provide that, or looking in person or finding someone who can guide you, because I guarantee if you have somebody who has already done it or is privy to how it's going to get done, it's so much more simple. It's so much more comforting and motivating. You look at all these Olympians, top athletes in the world, and they all have coaches. It's not because their coaches are better than them, but their coaches give them perspective that they need this. Even people who are performing at the highest level still need this. So that gives a lot of perspective. And so that was my exact thought process when I built the apprenticeship. When I was going through my training throughout the years, I didn't have any one space I could go to. I often felt like an oddball out. And so after I turned around and looked, I wanted to give practitioners things that I didn't have, whether they were a new or a seasoned practitioner. Because another thing I noticed is that once people finish their training, they kind of seem like they were lost and wandering. If anyone ever was initiated or they went through attunement, and then afterwards, it's like they had zero guidance. So when I created the apprenticeship, I wanted these practitioners to continue to have support, whether they are new season, they're already done with the apprenticeship, they're just coming into the apprenticeship. Because at the end of the day, as we were talking about, like with Olympians, they have, spaces in which they're still receiving support and things like that. So I looked at it like that. So it's really important as you are going towards your goals that you have a space where you can work on yourself and you're supported. Don't feel like you need to do it alone. Don't feel like you need to do it in one space. You can do it in multiple spaces, but it's going to be so important. So let's just run everything back. Most important thing in here is consistency. Okay? The next thing is having community, and the third thing is having mentorship. Like I said with the apprenticeship, I want to make it easier for others. In the apprenticeship, they learn different modalities, but it's not just modalities. They learn the mindset. How can you not fall prey into people manipulating you energetically, spiritually, which I see that happens a lot? How can you have a good, practical, analytical mindset for you to do research, understand the difference between history and folklore and still enjoy the folklore? Understand the difference, between mob mentality of just because a lot of people believe something doesn't mean it to be true. Be an individual, go into communities where you can be yourself. And so, all of these things of building of confidence in people, it's because I've, went through the whole experience and I want to make it easier. So I'm encouraging you on your gifts and your goals that you do the same thing. Find these spaces that do that. And I've always said, even with the apprenticeship, that, if people want to be practitioners, they can. But if they have dreams or goals or things they're working towards in their life, I've had many people come through the apprenticeship that just needed that kind of support as they were going through their life. So find those spaces and those places for yourself and connect in. Okay, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the session. I hope you continued to take movement during the session, and I will see you next time. Bye.